Hello everybody, this is Judge Kayla Smith, and today I will be judging the ranch halter. How I'm going to do this is I'm just going to show the side profile of each exhibitor and then talk about it. I'm not going to be showing the other views or the tracking as I've deemed them all sound, and I will share um, if I saw something worth note or worth sharing about the other views, then I will do so. Um, I'm going to start off by announcing each exhibitor and then talking about them. And then at the end of the class, I will announce my placings. I'm sorry if I mispronounce your guys' names. You guys will have to forgive me. I apologize in advance. I don't mean to. So our first exhibitor here is Dawn Strohecker with IC Employment. And this is a really impressive gelding. I love getting to judge him every opportunity that I get. This horse is really nicely balanced. He has a really nice sloping shoulder. He's really strong over his top line. And then he carries down a really nice croup into some really nice gaskins. And then he also has really high quality as he ties in high. He's really clean about his head and his neck. And he's really refined from eye to muzzle. The only thing I would change about this horse, and that's getting really nitpicky, is that he gets a little bit camped under at the hind end at some views. But like I said, that's getting really nitpicky. Our next exhibitor is Courtney Wiedemann with Quixote King's Ace. And this horse also comes in. He tracks really straight on the front end. He's really straight from down his knee. He locks out really nicely. He does get a little bit unlevel over his top line when looking at his wither and his croup. And that's really important to me in terms of balance. And I also wish he'd tie in just a little bit higher and just be a little bit cleaner about his head and neck. Our next exhibitor is Courtney Wiedemann with Done Passing Time. And this horse actually is really easily divisible into his thirds. He's a really nice shoulder, a long sloping shoulder, and he's pretty short and strong over his top line. He has a really nice angle to his hip. I think he just gets a little bit coarse about his head, and I wish he'd tie in just a little bit higher and a little bit cleaner. Our next exhibitor is Julie Kavanaugh with a Smooth Wire. And this horse, he's really straight down his front leg, but he gets a little bit camped under in his hind leg, and he tracks in just a little winged because of that. And he gets a little bit steep in his shoulder and his hip, and I think that causes him to be long in his back. But I also wish that he would tie in just a little bit higher, but he is clean about his attachment to his neck. Our next exhibitor is Melissa Bell with ZZ Talkin' Radical. And this is another really impressive gelding. He is really easily divisible into his thirds. He has a really nice slope to his shoulder and his hip, allowing him to be shorter and stronger over his top line in relation to a longer, cleaner underline. And he tracks in really straight. And he's nice and straight down his hind leg, and he locks out really nice in his front leg. I just wish he'd be a little bit more refined about his head. Our next exhibitor is Lillian Bullard with Kiss Me With Care. This gelding here, he does have a pretty nice slope to his shoulder, but I think he gets a little bit steep in his hip, which causes him to be long in his back. And I wish she would just set him up just a little bit higher with his head and neck to really get the full view on the quality, but he also has pretty decent structure. He comes in, he tracks in all right, but he does get a little bit steep in his pasterns. Our next exhibitor is Izzy Hostletter with Zipped Up Fancy. This is also another really impressive horse. He has a really nice slope to his shoulder, but he does get a little bit long in his back, but that's being pretty nitpicky. He also comes in, he tracks pretty straight. And then I wish he would tie in just a little bit higher and a little bit cleaner with his neck, but he is really refined and attractive about his head. Our next exhibitor is Kayla Richer with Senior chromed out. In this horse here, he does have a nice attachment from his head and his neck into his shoulder. He's really refined about his head and his neck, which is really nice. I do think he gets too long in his back here. I think that's just because he's a little bit steep in his shoulder. But this horse's strongest attribute is his head and neck. Our next exhibitor is Laura Linder with Got a Bueno Deal. And this horse is really nicely balanced. He's really easily divisible into his thirds. He may get a little bit long in his back, but he's still smoothly blended from beginning to end when looking at him. I do wish this horse would just have a little bit more refined head. He does tie in really nicely to his shoulder from his neck. Our next exhibitor is Jamie Hurled with Mo's Steady. And this horse is really nicely balanced. I think he fits the ranch horse style really nicely. As he may get just a little bit steep in his shoulder, but he is easily divisible into his thirds. Each section is pretty proportionate. I do wish he would be just a little bit more higher quality about his head and his neck. But he does tie in a little bit low, and he also does get camped under in his hind legs, but he locks out pretty straight in his front, in his knees. Our last exhibitor is Maria Novotnik with Spicy Asset. And this horse, he comes in and he tracks straight on his front legs, but he does get a little bit toed out in the hind. And I wish he'd be just a little bit more evenly balanced. He gets a little bit long in his back, and I think that's because he's more steep in his shoulder and his hip. And I also wish he'd be just a little bit more cleaner about his head and his neck, the way it ties in, and just a little bit more refined. Now, my placings for this class, in first place, I have Dawn Strohecker with IC Employment. In second place, I have Melissa Bell with ZZ Talkin' Radical. In third place, I have Izzy Hostletter with Zipped Up Fancy. In fourth place, I have Laura Linder with Got a Bueno Deal. In fifth place, I have Jamie Hurled with Mo's Steady. In sixth place, I have Courtney Wiedemann with Done Passing Time. In seventh place, I have Courtney Wiedemann with Quixote King's Ace. In eighth place, I have Kayla Richer with Senior Chromed Out. In ninth place, I have Lillian Bullard with Kiss Me With Care. In 10th place, I have Julie Kavanaugh with A Smooth Wire. And in 11th place, I have Maria Novotnik with Spicy Asset. Thank you guys so much for entering into the show and being a part of it and allowing me to be a part of it and judge you guys. It really is a great opportunity. Congratulations, you guys. This is a really fun class to judge and sort through. And I appreciate you guys, and so does the show management. And congratulations, and thank you guys so much again.